Phil Spencer talks acquisitions and bringing Game Pass to Switch and PlayStation. One of the most frequent questions that I get every single week when I do my podcast is, hey, who or what or when is Microsoft going to buy their next studio? Now, Microsoft has been on somewhat of a buying spree, right? They're about to spend $7.5 billion to acquire Bethesda, which is a wide portfolio of titles that are going to eventually join the Xbox studios once that acquisition has completed. This week, with Game Reactor, Microsoft is doing, or I should say Phil Spencer, is doing an interview and talking about a wide variety of topics. You can find a link down below. You can make the jumps to get to it. And it covers a lot of good things. But one of the most important things, which I think you are going to be interested about, is Phil Spencer on acquisitions. Now, with Bethesda, Microsoft is getting a whole bunch of what I would call like mostly higher end titles, first-person shooters, hardcore gamer IP. What Phil Spencer is explicitly talking about, he says, I think what is missing from our portfolio is casual content with broad appeal. E-rated content is not a strength for us. Now, Microsoft very clearly has Minecraft, and Minecraft has done exceptionally well for Microsoft over its life cycle inside the company, and it continues to grow and do really good things for the company, which is potentially why Microsoft is looking at more E-rated content to expand that portfolio. But there's also other features that they need to consider as well. Think about Game Pass, right? Microsoft has done a good job of getting those higher end hardcore style games, but if they want to broaden the horizons of who might actually pay for Game Pass, well, they're going to need some of that E-rated content, that casual style gameplay, and that is what Phil Spencer is looking to bring into the Microsoft family. Now that he's clearly not going to be talking about specific companies or titles or anything else like that, because then Stadia or Luna might go in and snatch them up, but that is definitely where Microsoft is now starting to focus their acquisition targets inside that E-rated content arena. Now, I believe Phil Spencer is actually a big fan of Animal Crossing, which is a Nintendo title. He actually did an interview inside of Animal Crossing a while back. But anyways, those are the types of titles that Microsoft is going to be looking to acquire to make Game Pass just appeal a little bit more. Now, one thing that he did point out is he got asked a bunch in the interview, and people online are always asking like, hey, what titles are going to be exclusive from Bethesda? Where are they going and doing all that stuff? And he made it very, very clear that he is not allowed to talk to Bethesda. He's not allowed to dictate what they're doing in the future. He actually talks about how he's really good friends with everyone over there, which is a good thing. But because Bethesda acquisition is not closed, it's going through the regulatory journey, and they think it'll close sometime in the first half of 2021. It's illegal for them to go in and say, hey, do X, Y, and Z, because then if the acquisition falls apart and Microsoft push them down the wrong pipeline and it sinks the company, there's just a lot of legal issues. So during an acquisition, you cannot go in there and dictate what is going to happen. So just keep that in mind, that Phil Spencer is not making any decision with what's happening with Bethesda at this time. The other interesting thing that he did talk about is Game Pass. Now, there's always been a lot of questions about, hey, is Game Pass going to end up on the Switch or PlayStation? And he pretty much just kind of shoots that down. In the interview, he talks about, hey, they need to get Game Pass on iOS first. They need to get it all the way to the PC. Then there's Chromebooks, there's Fire TV, and there's a whole bunch of other places that they want to bring Game Pass to, and that it doesn't really sound like Switch and PlayStation are on that agenda, but he does leave the door open. He won't fully close and say we're never going to do that, but he says it's up to his team to prioritize where they're going to bring it. And I also just don't think that Nintendo or honestly PlayStation are going to want Game Pass on their service, at least not now. So that's kind of if he thinks it's coming to Switch soon, I would put that to rest. He also really points out that he gets really annoyed at people asking if every time a first-person title comes out from Microsoft, if it's going to end up on Switch, and he kind of shoots that down as well. Even though some titles have ended up over there, I would not expect that to be the norm going forward. He also brings up another interesting point about GameCore. If you're not familiar with GameCore, just go do a Google search on it and you'll see more. But it talks more about how they've really brought together closer console games and PC games, which is one of the reasons why we see a lot of Xbox titles landing on the PC and then into Steam, because of the work that they have done to make PC titles and Xbox titles realistically just about the same under the hood. It's not perfectly the same, but it's much closer than it had been. So really, really interesting stuff coming out of that interview. And so you can go read it more at the link below. One of the other things that I've heard, and I tweeted it out last night, is that there are more, speaking of game studios, it looks like there are some more changes happening at 343. This is not game related, so don't dive into that. I'm not going to talk about timelines, because I honestly don't know the timeline yet for Halo Infinite, but it looks like there are some more changes happening over at that studio as they kind of get reconfigured for a launch sometime next year. And so just be on the lookout. I suspect that might make headlines here, I don't know, sometime eventually. But that's all we got for now, guys. And we'll catch all of you right back here next time.